Rain slid down the tinted windows of the black car like trembling fingers, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Inside, silence pressed heavier than the storm outside. Ava sat curled in the corner of the leather seat, her hands wrapped protectively around her stomach, her breathing shallow as if even air might betray her. Across from her, Ethan Moretti, the man people feared enough to whisper his name instead of saying it, stared without blinking. His jaw was tight, a small muscle twitching near his temple. The driver kept his eyes on the road, but even he could feel the tension slicing through the air. Ava's lips parted, fragile as a cracked mirror. Her voice came out almost too soft to exist. "Sorry, baby." Ethan leaned forward slowly, his large hand lifting her chin, forcing her eyes to meet his. His voice was low, controlled, but burning underneath. "Who do you think you are? Before we go any further, I want to know something simple. Where are you watching this story from tonight?" It's incredible how one moment can travel across cities and hearts at the same time. Drop your country below, let's see how far emotions really reach. Ava's eyes shimmered, not with defiance but with something deeper, exhaustion mixed with quiet love. She didn't answer him immediately. Instead, she looked down at his hand holding her face, her fingers trembling as they slowly wrapped around his wrist, not to pull him away, but to hold on. Outside, thunder rolled like a warning neither of them could escape. Ethan released her suddenly, leaning back as if burned by his own emotions. He dragged a hand through his dark hair, exhaling sharply. The car turned into a long private driveway lined with iron lamps, their glow revealing the massive estate waiting ahead, his world, a place Ava had never fully belonged to. 3 months earlier, Ava had entered Ethan's life like spring after endless winter. She was a volunteer nurse at a small clinic on the edge of town. The kind of place where people paid in gratitude more often than money. Ethan had arrived one night with a gunshot wound, blood soaking through his white shirt, his men panicked but loyal. Ava didn't ask questions. She just treated him. Her hands never shook, even when she realized exactly who he was. When he asked her later why she didn't look afraid, she had smiled softly and said, "Pain doesn't scare me. Watching someone suffer alone does." That answer stayed with him longer than the scar on his shoulder. Back in the present, the car stopped. The gates closed behind them with a final metallic echo. Ava hesitated before stepping out, her eyes scanning the mansion that always felt more like a fortress. Ethan noticed the pause. He always noticed everything about her, the way her fingers curled when anxious, how she bit her lip when holding back tears, how her silence spoke louder than arguments. He walked ahead without offering his hand this time, but slowed his pace just enough for her to keep up. Inside, the marble floors reflected the chandelier light like frozen stars. Ava wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself, though it wasn't cold. A voice called from the hallway, "Michael, Ethan's right-hand man. Boss, we need to talk. It's urgent." Ethan didn't look back. "Tomorrow." Michael hesitated, glancing at Ava with concern before stepping away. Ava noticed that look. She noticed everything too. When they reached the bedroom, Ethan finally spoke again, his voice quieter now, almost tired. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ava swallowed. "I was going to. I just needed time." Ethan turned sharply. "Time is something I don't have the luxury of." Ava's hand moved protectively over her stomach again. The unspoken truth hung between them like fragile glass. Earlier that day, Ava had visited the clinic alone. An elderly woman came in, frightened and confused, unable to pay for her medication. Ava used her own money without hesitation. When the woman asked why she would help a stranger, Ava simply replied, "Because someday, someone might do the same for my child." She hadn't realized Ethan's driver was there and heard everything. In Ethan's world, kindness was a currency more dangerous than power. Yet that was the very thing that drew him to her. If you were standing in Ava's place at that moment, what would you have done? Would you have spoken the truth immediately or protected it until the right time? Share your honest answer below. And if this moment touched you even a little, tap like, just to show that empathy still exists in this world. Ethan walked to the window, staring out at the storm. His reflection looked like a stranger, powerful, feared, but uncertain. You think bringing a child into my world is safe? He asked quietly. Ava stepped closer, her voice steady despite the tears forming. I think love can exist anywhere, even here. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, as if fighting a war no one else could see. The thunder outside softened into distant echoes. Ava reached for his hand, placing it gently over her stomach. His breath caught. For the first time that night, his expression cracked, not into anger, but into fear. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing something he never thought he deserved to have. Downstairs, a phone rang sharply, breaking the fragile peace forming upstairs. Michael's voice echoed faintly through the hall, urgent, alarmed. Ava noticed Ethan's posture change instantly, the Mafia boss returning, the man she loved slipping behind walls again. But before he could pull away completely, Ava whispered one more time, her voice barely audible yet powerful enough to stop him mid-step. Please don't shut me out again. The words wrapped around Ethan like a quiet plea that refused to let go. His hand remained over hers for one suspended heartbeat longer than expected, the warmth of her touch grounding him in a way no weapon ever could. Then the phone downstairs rang again, sharper, more desperate this time. Ethan exhaled slowly, pressing his forehead briefly against hers before stepping back. I have to take this, he murmured, though it sounded more like an apology than an excuse. Ava nodded, but her fingers lingered in the air after he left, as if they were still holding on to him. The bedroom suddenly felt too large, the silence louder than the storm outside. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door, willing it to open again sooner than later. The child growing inside her wasn't just a secret anymore, it was a bridge between two impossible worlds. One filled with danger and power. The other built on healing and hope. And somehow, she was standing in the middle, trying to keep both from collapsing. Downstairs, Ethan's voice shifted the moment he answered the phone. Calm. Cold. Commanding. Talk, he said. Michael's reply came rushed. There's been a breach. Someone from the Romano side is moving closer than we thought. And, they know about Ava. Ethan's grip tightened around the phone. The veins in his hand rose like warning lines. How? He demanded. Michael hesitated. We're still finding out. But boss, you need to move her somewhere safer. Tonight. Ethan ended the call without another word. For a second, the powerful man everyone feared stood completely still, like a statue carved from tension. The idea that Ava, and their unborn child, could become targets ignited something fierce in his chest. He had enemies he could handle. Betrayal he could punish. But this was different. This was vulnerability, the one thing he never allowed himself to have, until her. Upstairs, Ava walked slowly toward the window, watching the rain soften into a gentle drizzle. She remembered her childhood nights during storms, how her mother used to light candles and tell her stories to drown out the thunder. Fear loses power when someone stays, her mother always said. Ava smiled faintly at the memory, then placed her palm over her stomach again. I'll stay, she whispered. No matter what. The door opened behind her. She turned quickly, relief flickering in her eyes when she saw Ethan. But the expression on his face wasn't one of calm. It was the look he wore before making decisions that changed lives. Pack a bag, he said quietly. Ava's brows knit together. Why? Ethan stepped closer, his hands resting on her shoulders. Because I can protect you better somewhere else tonight. Ava searched his eyes. Somewhere else, or away from you? The question landed heavier than he expected. Ethan swallowed, his voice lowering. There are things I can control. And things I can't. Right now, I won't risk guessing wrong. Ava studied his face, noticing the thin crack in his armor, the fear he tried to hide for her sake. She nodded slowly. Okay. But I'm not running from your life, Ethan. I chose you. I choose this, even when it scares me. His thumb brushed gently against her cheek, a rare tenderness he showed only when no one else was watching. As Ava packed, Ethan stood near the door, watching her fold clothes with quiet precision. He admired her strength, not the loud kind, but the steady kind that holds families together when everything else falls apart. He remembered the first time she laughed in his presence, how foreign the sound felt in his world of calculated silence. She had brought light into rooms that once knew only shadows. And now, he was terrified that the same darkness might take her away. Have you ever had someone stand by you when the world felt against you? If yes, write their name in the comments. Sometimes gratitude deserves to be spoken out loud. You never know who might need to hear they mattered. Ava zipped the bag slowly, her hands pausing on the fabric as a thought crossed her mind. Ethan, if something ever happened to me, promise you teach our child kindness before strength. Ethan's jaw tightened. Nothing is happening to you, he said firmly. Ava gave a small, knowing smile. Life doesn't ask permission. He stepped forward, pulling her gently into his arms, holding her longer than usual. The storm outside had faded into a distant whisper, but inside him, the war only grew louder. Headlights suddenly flashed through the window, cutting across the room. Ethan turned instantly, instincts sharpening. His hand moved toward the concealed weapon in his jacket, but he relaxed slightly when Michael stepped out of the car below. Still, something about the timing didn't sit right. Ethan released Ava slowly. Stay here, he instructed. Ava grabbed his hand before he could leave. Come back to me, she said, her voice barely steady. Ethan gave a single nod, a silent promise heavier than words, then walked out, closing the door softly behind him. Ava sat back on the bed, her heart beating louder than the ticking clock on the wall. For the first time since learning she was pregnant, fear truly settled into her bones. Not fear of Ethan's world, but fear of losing the future they had just begun to imagine. Downstairs, Michael's face was pale. Boss, there's something else, he said. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Say it. Michael hesitated before finally speaking. We might have a traitor inside our own circle. The air between them turned ice cold. Ethan's mind immediately raced through names, loyalties, past favors, hidden tensions. Betrayal was a language he understood too well. But tonight, the cost of it felt higher than ever before. Upstairs, Ava suddenly felt a sharp, unfamiliar pain in her abdomen. Her breath caught. Her fingers tightened on the bed sheet as another wave followed, stronger this time. Panic flickered in her eyes. Not now, please not now, she whispered to herself, trying to steady her breathing. The room blurred slightly as she slowly stood, determined to reach the door before Ethan disappeared deeper into danger. Her hand touched the doorknob just as another voice echoed from downstairs, one she didn't recognize, and it was followed by the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. The metallic click sliced through the air like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. Ava froze, her fingers tightening around the doorknob. Every instinct told her to stay hidden, but something deeper, something fierce and protective, pushed her forward. Ethan was downstairs. And whatever danger had entered their home wasn't going to wait politely for her fear to settle. She opened the door carefully, stepping into the dim hallway, her bare feet silent against the cold marble floor. The pain in her abdomen pulsed again, but she steadied herself against the wall, breathing through it. Just a little further, she whispered to the life inside her. Downstairs, Ethan stood facing a man dressed in black, his face partially hidden by the shadow of the chandelier above. Michael was positioned to the side, his hand close to his own weapon, eyes sharp and calculating. The stranger smiled, not warmly, but like someone who enjoyed the taste of tension. Relax, Moretti, the man said smoothly. If I wanted you dead, this conversation would already be over. Ethan's expression didn't change. You broke into my house. That already says too much. The man's gaze drifted briefly upstairs, and Ethan caught it. His voice dropped dangerously low. Whatever you came for, say it now. Ava reached the staircase just as Michael noticed her. His eyes widened slightly, but Ethan didn't turn, not yet. The stranger, however, saw everything. Ah, he murmured. So the rumors are true. Even the devil finds something to love. Ethan stepped forward instantly, blocking the man's line of sight. You don't get to speak about her. The stranger raised his hands in mock surrender. I didn't come for blood tonight. I came with information. There's a contract on her life, and the child. The words landed like thunder inside Ethan's chest. Ava's breath caught halfway down the stairs. Michael cursed under his breath. Ethan's mind raced, names, motives, possible traitors, but one question burned louder than the rest. Who ordered it? He demanded. The man tilted his head slightly. That's the interesting part. It came from someone who once swore loyalty to you. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Ava felt another wave of pain, stronger this time. She gripped the railing, her knuckles whitening. Ethan finally sensed her presence and turned. The moment he saw her standing there, vulnerable yet determined, something inside him cracked open. He moved toward her quickly, his voice softer. You shouldn't be out here. Ava shook her head. I needed to see your face. Ethan cupped her cheek gently, grounding both of them in that brief touch. The stranger cleared his throat. Time isn't on your side, Moretti. Protecting them means making choices you might not like. Ethan didn't look back at him. Leave. Now. The man smirked faintly but obeyed, disappearing into the night as quietly as he had arrived. Michael followed to ensure he truly left, the heavy doors closing behind them with a final echo. Ethan guided Ava back upstairs, his arms secure around her. You're shaking, he murmured. Ava managed a weak smile. That makes two of us. Inside the bedroom, Ethan helped her sit, kneeling in front of her so their eyes met at the same level. Listen to me, he said carefully. I will end this before it reaches you. I swear it. Ava studied him, seeing both the ruthless leader and the terrified father merging into one man. Promise me something else, she whispered. Don't lose yourself while protecting us. Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't answer immediately because the truth was, he didn't know how to separate the two. The clock ticked slowly on the wall as silence filled the room again. Ava's breathing steadied, the pain easing for now. Ethan rested his forehead against her hands, closing his eyes for a brief second of peace. He had fought countless wars, survived betrayals, buried enemies without regret. But this was different. This was something he could lose. Now I want to pause for a second, think about your own life. What is one small act of kindness you did recently, even if no one noticed? Share it below so someone reading might believe goodness still exists. Your story could be the reminder someone desperately needs tonight. Ava brushed her fingers through Ethan's hair slowly, a calming gesture that always worked on him. Do you remember what you told me the night we met? She asked softly. Ethan looked up, confusion flickering. Ava smiled faintly. You said, people like me don't get second chances. Ethan exhaled quietly. I still believe that. Ava shook her head. Then let me be your proof that you're wrong. Downstairs, a sudden crash shattered the fragile calm, glass breaking, followed by hurried footsteps. Ethan's instincts roared back instantly. He stood, reaching for his weapon, but Ava grabbed his hand. Fear flashed in her eyes, not for herself, but for him. Please come back, she whispered again. Ethan squeezed her hand once, firmly, then released it. As he moved toward the door, a single thought echoed in his mind, not about power, revenge, or loyalty, but about a future he had never dared to imagine until her. And just as his hand touched the doorknob, Michael's voice shouted from downstairs, filled with urgency and something far worse than panic. "Boss, they're already inside." Michael's shout tore through the hallway like a siren. Ethan didn't think. He moved. Every step down the staircase was silent but lethal, his grip firm on the weapon in his hand, eyes scanning every shadow. The shattered glass from the back entrance glittered across the floor like scattered ice. 2 of his guards were down, alive, but unconscious. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned. Personal. Upstairs, Ava pressed both hands against her stomach, whispering calming words to the child who could already feel her racing heart. She wanted to stay put, just like Ethan asked. But love has a strange way of making bravery feel like the only option. She stepped into the hallway again, slower this time, listening to every sound, footsteps, hushed voices, the distant hum of danger creeping closer. Downstairs, Ethan moved like a storm held inside human form. He signaled Michael to circle left. A figure emerged near the dining hall, weapon raised, but Ethan was faster. The man dropped his gun almost instantly, surrender written all over his face. Ethan grabbed him by the collar. "Who sent you?" he growled. The man hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. Ethan tightened his grip. "Say it." The answer came out broken. "R. Romano didn't order it. It was someone from your own table." Ethan released him slowly, rage simmering beneath his controlled expression. Betrayal always cut deeper when it came from inside. Michael secured the intruder while Ethan's mind raced through possibilities. Names. Faces. Loyalties that now felt uncertain. But one truth rose above the rest: Ava and the baby could not stay here anymore. Ava reached the top of the stairs just as Ethan looked up. For a moment, the chaos disappeared. There was only her. Only them. Ethan climbed back up quickly, his voice low but urgent. "We're leaving. Now." Ava searched his face. "It's that serious?" Ethan nodded once. "Yes. But you and the baby are safe as long as I breathe." Suddenly, Ava's knees weakened. Ethan caught her instantly. Fear flashed across his face. "What's wrong?" Ava tried to steady her breath. "Just stress. I think. I'm okay." Ethan lifted her into his arms without another word, carrying her toward the bedroom. For the first time, power meant nothing to him. Control meant nothing. All that mattered was the fragile life depending on him to choose love over war. Once inside, Ava rested against the pillows while Ethan paced the room, calling for immediate security relocation. His voice was calm, but his eyes revealed everything he refused to say out loud. Ava watched him quietly. She had fallen in love with a man feared by many, but she stayed because she saw the boy inside him who once believed he was unworthy of love. When Ethan ended the call, Ava reached for his hand again. "Come sit with me," she whispered. He obeyed without hesitation. Silence wrapped around them like a fragile blanket. Ava guided his hand back over her stomach, the same gesture from earlier, but now it meant something deeper. "This child deserves a father who is present," she said gently. Ethan swallowed hard. "I don't know how to be both men." Ava smiled softly. "Then choose the one who sleeps peacefully at night. If this moment touched your heart, leave a small red heart below. Sometimes a simple symbol speaks louder than all the words we struggle to say." The sound of approaching sirens filled the distance, Ethan's private security team locking down the estate. For the first time since the chaos began, Ava's breathing steadied fully. Ethan rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. "I almost lost you tonight," he admitted quietly. Ava shook her head. "No, tonight we found what matters most." But Ethan's mind wasn't free yet. One question lingered like an open wound. Could he truly walk away from the life that built him? Revenge would be easier. Mercy would be harder. Ava noticed the storm still living behind his eyes. "Ethan, can you forgive whoever did this?" she asked softly. "Be honest with yourself, could you forgive someone who tried to destroy your peace?" Type "forgive" if you could, or "never" if the pain would stay too deep. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked at Ava, then at her stomach, then back into her eyes. "For them," he said quietly, "I can try." Ava's lips curved into the kind of smile that carried both relief and pride. Growth didn't always come loudly. Sometimes, it arrived in whispers. Hours later, as dawn slowly painted the sky with pale gold, Ethan stood by the window holding Ava from behind while she rested against him. The world outside looked peaceful again, as if the night had never happened. Ava intertwined her fingers with his. "Promise me one thing," she murmured. Ethan kissed her temple. "Anything." Ava's voice was soft but certain. "No more running from happiness." Ethan exhaled slowly. "I promise." If you believe love still finds a way even in the darkest lives, comment "Amen" below. Someone reading your words might need that reminder tonight. Michael knocked gently before entering. "Everything secure, boss?" Ethan nodded. But instead of giving more orders, he simply said, "Thank you." Michael noticed the change, the shift from a man ruled by power to one guided by purpose. Ava turned in Ethan's arms, looking up at him. "You're going to be a good father," she said. Ethan gave a small, unsure smile. "Only if I have you reminding me how." Ava rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. For the first time since they met, it beat without urgency. If this story stayed with you until now, don't scroll away quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the woman who chose love in a world built on fear, and for the man who learned that strength sometimes means softness. One small click can be your way of saying, "I felt this." And as the sun rose higher, Ethan Moretti, the man once known only for power, finally understood something Ava had known all along: a life built on love will always outlast a life built on control. Sometimes, redemption doesn't arrive through grand gestures. Sometimes, it begins with a whisper, a trembling apology, and the courage to hold on instead of letting go. Because in the end, the strongest hearts are not the ones that never break, but the ones that choose kindness even after they do.